Hello, my name is Alyssa Utai. I am a environmental health specialist, and I just wanted to welcome you all to the topic of the day. Today's topic of the day is effects of formaldehyde and its presence in common household items. What is formaldehyde? It is a colorless, strong smelling gas used to make furniture and household items. It can also be used as a preservative to food, and it occurs naturally in the environment. This slide here is titled Why, and I just want to gear your attention to why you should be concerned about formaldehyde. And there's two things I listed here. So the first one is health effects when exposed to formaldehyde. You can feel things like watery eyes, burning in the eyes, burning in your nose, your throat, coughing, wheezing, nausea, and skin irritation. Another thing was a study that the Environmental Protection Agency did, and it was a study on rats and on people. The EPA also said that formaldehyde was a probable human carcinogen, and now it is a carcinogen. So the study on rats showed that when the rats were exposed to formaldehyde, they they inhaled this chemical, and it was linked to leukemia and cancers of the nose. The other study was a study on people, and they did the study mainly on people who worked with formaldehyde. And these people are like embalmers or medical professionals. So embalmers are people who um, they essentially work in a funeral home, and they get the body ready for a funeral. Anyway, they did this study on these two type of people, and it was linked to cancer of the throat and cancers of the nasal sinuses and a myeloid leukemia, which is whenever your white blood cells are producing abnormally. So moving forward, I'd like to go over the exposure sources of formaldehyde. Um, the first one is wood, and this can be anything from plywood to presswood, particle board, um, and then these woods show that the glues contain formaldehyde, and these type of woods are used to make economy grade furniture. Next one is paints, wallpaper, cardboard, and paper products. Vehicle exhaust from attached garages or garages that are outdoors. Tobacco smoke also contains formaldehyde. Nail polish, hair straightening products, laundry and dish detergents, and finally pet products. So after we went over a few things that contain formaldehyde, I want to look deeper into that, into some data that these tables that I made. So on the axis, you can see arts and crafts, auto products, home maintenance inside the home, and on the next slide, commercial, landscape, personal care, and pet care. So after looking over it briefly, I'm going to go back to home and maintenance. It has the most at 65. Um, and I would like to go over what each one contains. So, arts and crafts has about 5 items, and um, the the exposure source here would be formaldehyde and glues. For the auto products, it's mainly in car cleaning sprays. For the home maintenance, you can see formaldehyde in wood finishes and paints. Inside the home, you can see formaldehyde in detergent, insulation, and wallpaper. For commercial and landscape products, it's tied about at 6 items that contain formaldehyde. In commercial products, you can see it in glues like adhesives. Landscape, you can see it in wood finishes as well. And in personal care, you'll see formaldehyde in your lotion, your body wash, and also soap. For pet care products, this one surprised me the most. I didn't realize that you can find formaldehyde in pet care products, but um, it's contained in shampoo for dogs and cats, and also cleaning supplies slash treatment for fishes. So the health effects of formaldehyde, there's two types. There's short-term effects and long-term effects. For the short-term effects, you'll see mainly irritation, irritation in your skin, irritation in your throat, eyes, and nose. And then for long-term effects, you can see nasal and throat cancer, and this is because formaldehyde changed from a group 2A to a group 1 carcinogen based on the EPA, and there was sufficient data that linked it to this type of cancer. And same with leukemia, you'll see that in funeral industry workers, and again with allergic asthma. This one also surprised me. I didn't realize that this can be one of the long-term effects of formaldehyde, but it can be, and this is because the longer you're exposed to formaldehyde, it can cause skin irritation and then eventually asthma attacks. Finally, one of the long-term effects of formaldehyde would be reproductive effects, and examples of this would be spontaneous abortions, low birth weight, and infertility. So this slide here, I wanted to go over some chemicals involved, and I made a chart. On the left-hand side, it says what it's also called, and on the right, it says what can release it. So on, for example, like a lotion bottle, it won't state. Some of them won't state that it contains formaldehyde, so it can also be called formalin, formic aldehyde, methanol, methylaldehyde. And then on the right side, on the right column, it says what can release it. So these chemicals here can release formaldehyde. Benzyl hemiformal, 2-bromo-2-nitropropane, 1,3-diol, diazolidinyl urea, and quaterninium 15. That was a mouthful. So moving forward, I would like to go over how to decrease exposure, and this is how to decrease exposure mainly in the homes, because you can see, as we saw before, most of the data showed that formaldehyde was prevalent in the home maintenance. So decreasing exposure can be by ventilation, source control, and also air cleaning. For source control, this would be more useful in a newer home. And then I'd like to go over some things that can help minimize the risk from formaldehyde exposure, and these are things that we can all implement in our homes. The first one is making a no policy smoking in the home. I think this would be very helpful. And then the next one is cleaning chimneys and wood burning stoves. Keep gas engines away from the home. Purchasing solid wood furniture. Increasing ventilation during painting. Similarly, using non-toxic paints. Letting your new furniture air out, and finally ventilating the home regularly. This slide here shows the status of any EPA or other regulatory organizations standards. So for the Toxic Substances Control Act, they regulate the uses of formaldehyde. The Clean Water Act regulates discharges of hazardous substances, including formaldehyde. The Clean Air Act, formaldehyde is designated as a hazardous air pollutant, so it's regulated to national emission standards. And then the national emission standards for hazardous air pollutants, formaldehyde has to be at the max degree of emission reduction that the EPA determines. And then finally, the control of hazardous air pollutants from mobile sources. This regulates emissions of formaldehyde. So closing, I wanted to go over a summary of what we went over. So we went over what is formaldehyde, why we should be concerned about it, health effects, exposure sources and what we can do to minimize exposure. And then these next 3 slides are the references I used. And then the last 2 slides are the photo references along with which photo it correlates to. Okay, thank you so much for attending the topic of the day.